pia American singer tunakupenda sana, karibu sana tena sana. 001. Shukran sana.
Yeah. First, let me say I am surprised by your endurance that since we came here up to now, you are all still almost here. I'm so happy and surprised. Now, talking to the youth from Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is the Agikuyu, Ameru, Embu, Tharaka, and Mbere. They used to be called Gema before. But how did they become such a close-knit community? It is because of the colonial past. And these are the people who really felt the brunt of colonialism at that time. Because when the struggle started, and then the colonialists declared a state of emergency, these people became a special and endangered community. I'm holding here a pass. This pass is called Kikuyu Embu Meru Passbook. That during that state of emergency, you could never travel without this passbook. It is what enabled you to travel. And it says identity, registration number, name Simon Warurwa Ngugi, tribe Kikuyu, district Fort Hall, location Gatanga, chief Ndungu, sublocation Ruegeda, occupation clerk, age or age group 29 years. This is Kandara, October 21st, 1958. And this is movement permit. Movement from, you have to state where you come from, to where you are going to, via, valid between when and when, and the movement permit register entry number, issued out and so on and so forth. So you had to have this one here at that time. And the radio used to announce when we were young that Kikuyu, Meru, Embu ni watu hatari. Ikiwa ni mmoja akipita, piga report kwa polisi mara moja. That's how we grew up. Okay? So, and that is what has brought us together today. That's where we're coming from. But later on now, all the other Kenyans joined and it became a nationalist movement that brought independence to our country. I just want to tell you two stories very quickly. We have here with us my friend S.K. Macharia. S.K. Macharia is a living testimony to struggle, to dedication, and to achievement. Because S.K. Macharia left this country on a bus, and he had only 1,500 shillings. And he was going to the United States of America. So he went to America by road. It took him 9 months to reach America. Took him 9 months. And then now in America, he struggled, working to get money to pay fees, and he managed to study and excel. So that at 20 independent, he was now invited to come here, the story which is stated. But then even here, when he came, after he left government, he started a business. He experienced a lot of problems because there was now a regime that was anti-business. He started a company called Madhu Paper to produce toilet papers. Frustrated. Seriously, I saw this myself. And they basically closed that company. But he did not give up. He started Royal Media. Went on with Royal Media. I have been present when his offices were invaded. And the business had been invaded, they took equipment and so on. SK was fighting with the police physically when I went to join him in his office. So you are seeing here a true Kenyan patriot and a dedication, a testimony that with sacrifice, commitment, and dedication, you can achieve. SK's story, you can actually compare it to that of Mr. Hilton, who started as a shoeshine boy, or Mr. Benz, who eventually started Mercedes-Benz, or Mr. Toyota. Yours truly here. You say we are dynasty. Dynasty, now my story. My father came from a very poor background. And he could not even go to school properly. Because my grandfather did not want to hear anything about education. Kuku yangu inasoma, mtoto yangu inasoma nini? When he started school at Maranda, primary school then, went to Maseno. Then now he was a very sad student when the sister of a Mzungu called Kerry Francis saw him. Then she told her brother that there's a young boy here who is intelligent, but he seems to be very sad. So Kerry Francis called him. And he said that my fear is that I like education. But if I go back home, I will not come back. Because my father will not pay school fees. So Kerry Francis adopted him. So during school holidays, he would do menial tasks in the school and get money to pay his fees. That is how he moved from Maseno to Alliance High School to Makerere. Then, after a while, he disagreed with he came back and taught at Maseno. Eventually disagreed with the colonialists, resigned, and started a business in Kisumu. So that's where we were brought up. I was born in Maseno, brought up in Kisumu. And then those days, in Kisumu, we grew up in an estate called Kaloreni. Running around, we also used to look after cows. Those days, there were cows in the towns. Then we started education there. I remember when the king died, King George, we were made to sing by the teacher. King George wetu mfalme mkuu amekwisha aga dunia. Sijui kama atarudi tena. So we went there, we were nursery, primary 1, 2. Then our father decided that the life in town was making us too much wakora, and decided to remove us to take us to rural school, where he had gone to school. When we were in standard 2, going to standard 3. So when we went down there, because in the rural areas, people were going to school when they were very old. So they said, these children cannot go to standard 3. We're made to start again down there, almost like as a nursery. Coming up, losing 3 years of education. But that did not discourage us. Because you sit in class with children, you're being taught things you already know, but you have to persevere and go on like that. Then it reached a time, because Jaramogi had disagreed with Carrie Francis, because he felt that Carrie Francis was looking down upon Africans, that were not equal to Europeans. Even the school where he was teaching, there were 2 separate quarters. Quarters for European teachers and quarters for African teachers. And then so their relationship became love-hate. So it came a time when my elder brother did an examination, and this was called CAPE. And he passed so highly, he was one of the top children in then the so-called South Nyanza. So, and he had written his first choice, Alliance High School. And he was not taken Alliance. He was not even taken in Kisii High School. He was taken to Maranda High School. So my father did not agree. He came to alliance with my brother, elder brother Buru, to Carrie Francis. Carrie Francis told him, Jaramogi, I told you never to go to politics. You decided to go to politics, and you were creating a lot of problems. That's why I cannot take your child here, because he's going to create problems in this school. And I've also already told the headmaster in Kisii High School not to take him. So my father was very annoyed. Then he decided to relocate us to schools outside the country at that time. But he already did not have a passport. His passport had been impounded because he had gone to China in those days, Red China. But that's another story. He was now traveling on a passport given to him by the late Kwame Nkrumah, President of Ghana, and another one by Gamal Abdel Nasser, President of Egypt. So he took Oburu, he smuggled Oburu with him without a passport to Addis Ababa, where he got some traveling documents, and then to Khartoum, Cairo, then to Europe. Me, I was put on an OTC, a bus. From here, I traveled on a bus, OTC, to Dar es Salaam. And then when I went there, I went to Mwalimu Nyerere. Nyerere is the one who gave me a traveling document, passport. So I became a son of Mwalimu Nyerere. That's why when I go to Tanzania, they say, I know I've come back home. So Mwalimu adopted me and then gave me a traveling document. That's how I ended up in Europe. But I went first to Cairo, where I was arrested because I did not have a valid vaccination certificate in those days, smallpox and yellow fever. I was put in a quarantine at the airport in Cairo for 4 days. Then I went into town. And I lived in Cairo in an estate called Zamalek. And I became part of that society. Gamal Abdel Nasser, president of Egypt, welcomed me. And I became, because I was a soccer player, I became a member of Zamalek Football Club. And from there, now I went by ship. We drove through the desert to Alexandria. Down there, we boarded a ship. We went overnight to a place called, to Syria, a port called Latakia. The ship docked because it was a passenger cargo ship. We left Latakia when the ship was still loading and went to Damascus. When I arrived, I didn't know that Damascus was on earth when we were being taught in school. So we went to Damascus after the place where Paul became converted. Saul became Paul. So there used to be my uncle who was very religious and used to tell us about Damascus in heaven. So I went and got a postcard and wrote to my uncle and told him I'm in Damascus. It is on earth. From there we now travel along across the Mediterranean, the route that Peter and Paul were taken to when they were being taken to Rome because they had refused to be tried under the Jewish law. That route all the way to an island called Malta. Then in Malta there we found, met an African American who was in that island, welcomed us, we had a good time. From there we went back to Africa in Tunis. From Tunis to Algiers. From Algiers we travel now toward Gibraltar. But before getting to Gibraltar, we had to be baptized in the ship. Because people in the sea are very superstitious. They are a dangerous point in the sea. And if you have not been baptized, a sea name, there will be trouble when you cross Gibraltar. Because then you are entering Atlantic. So we were dressed in very rags and you go and hide, they come and find you, and then they bring you out to the deck. You are taken, they're holding your hands, they draw water from the sea with bucket and pour on you. Then they baptize you. My name was a sea needle, a swordfish. That is my sea name. So that when the devils come, they will not identify you, you'll be like a sheep, like a fish. We crossed Gibraltar and entered the Bay of Biscay. Heavy winds came, carrying the ship like a piece of paper, 100 meters up and down. You are just vomiting. You drink water, you just vomit for 4 days. Consecutive days. Until we reached the English Channel. Then into London. London, they're speaking Cockney. I never thought that white men could be doing this manual work, the dockers. When I woke up in the morning, they were there, talking, Azungu's there. Then we went into London. We stayed there. Then we went to Germany from there. We went from there via Rotterdam to Denmark, then into Germany. You enter there, you're a young boy, and then now, new language, you have to start learning language. I learned the German language. I was very good in language. Actually, I was top of my class in the German language. And then after that, now you begin to now do other subjects. You're learning physics, you're learning mathematics, you're learning chemistry, biology, and all those. And eventually, I did my O-levels there. Then my A-levels that time. Then I went to university, the University of Magdeburg, Otto von Guericke. Studied there, eventually graduated. Then came back to Kenya. I had registered for a PhD in my university. I was only coming here briefly for a holiday and then go back. But when I arrived here, there were problems. The Kisumu incident, where many people died. And all of a sudden, the same night, I'm with my father in the house. A state of curfew has been declared. You can't leave. 4 days later, my father is arrested. The others had been arrested before and taken to detention. So I'm here now. I come to Nairobi, and I want to start now life. We had been living in Nairobi during the holidays in our house, first in Bahati, then Jerusalem. So I was not a stranger to Nairobi. But now I come here, start working. I start looking for a job because I have my siblings who are still going to high school. Now I cannot go back to Europe. I applied for jobs. I got offers, railways, breweries, and the University of Nairobi. I took the university job. That's how I landed here in 1970. It was then still University College, the College of University of East Africa. The other campus was in Dar es Salaam, and the other one was in Makerere. But a few months later, the University of East Africa was dissolved. Nairobi became a full-fledged university. And then now it started here. Then one day, one of our mechanics here at the university, it's called I.G. Desai, comes to me and tells me, Mr. Odinga, there is an Indian who has been kicked out of Uganda by Idi Amin. He had a factory in Jinja, and he has uprooted all the machines and brought them to Nairobi. He's selling these machines because he's leaving, going to UK. He was an electrical engineer. You are the mechanical engineer, you may need to do something with those machines. So he takes me to a house of a Kalasinga in Parklands. When I go there, I see machines there, a lathe machine, a milling machine, a rolling machine, welding sets, and a press. And I tell him I can do something with this. But I paid the money. The guy was demanding 12,000 shillings, which I didn't have. My salary here was 2,500 shillings per month. But I had an Opel car I had brought from Germany, left-hand drive. I sold it, then I got the money to pay the Indian to buy those machines. I bought them. Then I now needed capital to start the plant. I was able to, then I went to a banker who used to be my father's banker, Bank of India. And then I told him I'm looking for money. I needed 20,000 shillings. Then he told me, don't come back again here to see me, because these people are going to put me in trouble. So many people are trailing you. But come in the evening at 6 o'clock, this window, and knock this way. So, in the evening I went, and I knocked at the window. He opened the window and threw 20,000 shillings at me. And that is how I started me in business. So with that, I went to industrial area. It was called then Kingston Road. Today it's called Kampala Road. I rented a shed, 5,000 square feet. At that time, there were Kenyans who had been kicked out of Uganda because they were doing what was called Ugandanization. And they are here, very highly skilled workers. I hired them. And we started making these casements, doors and windows, steel windows and so on, welding. That's how I started a company. Then I met a German during the German Independence Day celebrations, and we talked in German. Then I told him I'm teaching at the University of Nairobi, but I also have a plant in Kingston Road. He said they have started Kenya Industrial Estates to help Kenyans start industries. So he came the following day to look at my factory. When he looked at it, he told me, look, we are trying to make manufacturers out of laymen who don't know. But here is somebody who knows what he's supposed to do, and a qualified engineer. This project of yours definitely qualifies for financing. That is how he took me, went to industrial estates. Then we prepared a project paper, expansion of my project. And I got a loan, 350,000 shillings, which I now bought some modern machinery from Germany and started. That is the story of my company, East Africa Spectra Limited. I wanted to tell you those two stories of SK and myself. But then, let me now, basically, I don't want to bore you people. I'm going to be very brief. Okay. I listened to a number of those who spoke here about the challenges that young people face when they want to start life, want to do businesses, and so on. There was also a talk here about young people not wanting to be engaged in agriculture, which is, of course, I know it is something historical, but we must actually encourage our people to get involved in agricultural production. But we must create incentives to let the youth know that there is a reward in getting involved in agricultural production. Because what's happening here is there are several challenges in agriculture which must be confronted and dealt with. And this country is not uniform in terms of agriculture. There are some crops which are basically ethnic. You only find them in certain regions. Like if you go and tell a Luo about tea, he has never even seen a tea plant or a coffee. You're talking basically about central here, the mountain, even the Meru, Embu. You're talking about Kericho area, Nandi, part of Western and Rift Valley. If you're talking about maize, commercial maize farming, then you're mainly talking about Rift Valley, up there. Okay. You're talking about bananas, you're talking about Kisii, mainly. Potatoes, I always say I love Meru potatoes, and Central, and so on. You're talking about fishing. Then you're talking about the lake, Victoria, Lake, Turkana, Naivasha, and the coast. Okay? So in each and every area has got specific crops which require attention. First is what is common, the cost of production, seeds, fertilizers, chemicals, and so on. Second, the issue of the market, access to the market, the bureaucracies that you have to deal with, and so on and so forth. You see, I've seen some reforms which are being carried out, for example, in tea sector in the central, in the country, which need to be encouraged and proper. But then the most important thing is access to the market. And then the bureaucracy, taxation, which is too high. And then you've got other institutions which have been brought there. You've got KEBS, you've got KEFIS, you've got NEMA, and so on, which instead of encouraging are actually discouraging the farmer, and not only the farmers, even businesses generally. I is one of the founders of Kenya Bureau of Standards. I drafted the act with my other friends because we had been stopped from manufacturing LPG cylinders because there were no standards. Then I talked to the Minister for Commerce and Industry then, Mr. James Opsogo, who agreed to work with us in the formation of a Bureau of Standards. So we drafted the bill, took it to the ministry, the minister took it to the Attorney General. It was then published as an act, as a bill, taken to Parliament, debated, and the act was passed. They advertised jobs, not very many people applied. Second, because the salary they were offering was low. They had to increase the salaries. Then I decided to go there so that we could write the standards so that it would enable us to produce. So the Bureau of Standards was formed. I became the group standards engineer in the Bureau of Standards. We trained in the UK, I trained at the British Standards Institution. I trained at the National Bureau of Standards in Washington, Gettysburg, in Washington, D.C. When we came back here, we wrote the first standard, the standard for standards. Then the third standard you'll see is on LPG cylinders, which I wrote. I could have left the Bureau at that time, but they insisted that you stay on. I became the deputy head of director of Kenya Bureau of Standards. But standards are supposed to help the manufacturers, not to hamper. Standards are not supposed to hamper, to facilitate. In Britain, there are people who say they're producing above the British standards. Therefore, they do not want what is called the kite mark. And they're allowed to produce. And the people who are produced below the British standards. If it is not something that is harmful to health of anybody, they can produce. Because the purpose of standard is fitness for use. But then, if you reach a stage where a Bureau of Standards is inspecting second-hand vehicles, there's something terribly wrong. What is a Bureau of Standards doing inspecting second-hand vehicles? What standards are there? Completely. And then the issue of importation, which is hurting industries here. goods which are being produced here, market is already flooded with cheap goods which have come from China. So people cannot manufacture. If you go down to the industrial area where I started, I was telling you that story, and I know all the streets in the industrial area, from when they were first, their names were in English names. You see, you start from Addis Ababa Road, okay, Ainsworth. You go to Bamburi, Banbury, Changamwe, Crawford, Dakar, Dundee. It's called what now? Isiolo, Ilford. And you go on and on and on. Where I was in Kampala Road, it used to be called Kingston Road. But industrial area is now a cemetery of industries. Factories which used to employ 200 people, 500 people, are now warehouses, housing cheap containers, carrying cheap import from China. You have killed jobs here and exported them to China. That is something that is very distressing. That can and must be corrected. Yes, you have now Mitumba. Mitumba has become a big business here. But you forget that in doing so, we have killed textile industries. We had Kikomi in Kisumu, Rivertex in Eldoret, Raymond in Nakuru, Nitex, how do you call it, in Nanyuki. And there's one here also, Titex in Thika. All those are dead, Now our people are just importing mitumba, and that's what we are proud of. I'm being approached to continue to allow mitumba to come. These people who are selling mitumba can actually be selling goods and clothes which are manufactured here in this country. That way we can be having jobs. Then you have, you talked about promoting local investments. This day I talk, buy Kenya, build Kenya. And we need to encourage our people. You saw I was given cables which are manufactured locally here. And I know that our people are very innovative, and given the challenges and opportunities, can actually rival other people in other parts of the world. M-Pesa is an invention of Kenyan, and it's been now an export to the rest of the world. So we'll need to deal with issues of taxation that was mentioned. That is basically hurting the local businesses here, because we talked of medium, small, and middle enterprises. That is the beginning. That is what has brought China up. That's how China has now become the factory of the world. Then you talked about something you talked about here, the issue of harassment by the police. There is something historical about this. Our police force, at its origin in colonialism, it was a force which is anti-people. It's being used to rule the people. Colonialism was ruling the natives. Therefore, the police were very harsh. People feared the police. You never go to the police. But we never did a proper retraining of our police force and make it fully a service rather than a force. That is people-friendly. That does not harass the people. Because I'll give you an example. If you go to London and you lose your direction, you go to the police. They're called Bobby. And you ask him, please, can you show me the road to Trafalgar Square? Oh, it's Trafalgar Square? Yes. Walk straight on. 500 yards, turn left. Another 200 yards, turn right. You can't miss it. Then you say, thank you very much. Then he salutes you, thank you, sir. You know? Here in Nairobi, you get lost. You got a policeman, ati afande barabara naenda Kariakoo. Kariakoo, umepotea? Ndio. Wapi kitambulisho? Afande, kitambulisho niliwacha nyumbani. Oh, una kitambulisho? Twende. Bingo. You find yourself in the cold cell. The following day, you are in the courts, charged with loitering with intention to commit a felony. So, we must change our police force, and we will change our police force. Retrain it, make it people-friendly, and remunerate them properly. They're well-paid and well-housed, so that they can actually be a service to our people. And then people are being harassed, like women who have been abused sexually. She goes to a police station to make a report. She's being asked some very, very embarrassing questions. She feels very embarrassed, and they're even just laughing. So what we do, we'll digitize our economy so that you can report crime online, like they do in Dubai. You don't have to physically go to a police station. Where you are, you just dial and report a crime digitally. And that avoids all those embarrassments that you are subjected to as a woman when you go to a police station. Then, on the issues of, I've talked about promoting our industries in the country. And I'm saying we want to go the direction which is known, which countries like Malaysia, like South Korea, China have gone. At independence, the economy of South Korea and Kenya were at par. Kenya and Korea were at par in terms of per capita income, poverty levels, literacy levels, the health certificates, and so on. Kenya and Korea were the same. Now the economy of South Korea is 50 times bigger than that of Kenya. Korea is now a first world country. You ask yourself, what did they get right which we got wrong? And you can do it. Well, the same thing with Singapore. When I was a prime minister, I got a book of Lee Kuan Yew and gave it when we took the ministers for training, that this is a must read for each and every minister. This is the direction we want to go as a country, as Kenya. Of course, we had started, we came up with Vision 2030, but you know what has happened. We had the National Economic Social Council, which was meeting quarterly. I chaired the last NESC meeting in February 2013. We will change, we will bring it back. NESC. So we have, you heard me say the other day, that when we get to power, we know that it will take us time to reach a stage where everybody has got an income, something active in which they have incomes. But we said, and before we get there, we don't want to see any Kenyan starving and living without food. There are 5 fundamental human rights, basic rights. The right to life, the right to food, the right to shelter, the right to health, and the right to education. And we will ensure that this happens. That's why we've said we are going to have a social protection fund in which we are going to ensure that each and every Kenyan family that does not have a source of income will get a transfer of 6,000 shillings per month. That is not something picked from out of the blues. It has been costed by our experts, and we are certain it is doable, and we will begin to do it immediately when we are in government. So I am almost done now. I want to tell you guys that we want to move together as a country. China managed in 30 years to move 300 million people from poverty to middle income status. We can do it as Kenyans, but only if we work together and become real Kenyans. When I said Kibaki Tosha, we were sitting in a room at how do you call it, please? Serena. We had been sitting there, we were about 7 presidential candidates, and Uhuru Park was full. There was Kibaki, Charity Ngilu, Amalwa Kijana, Mudi Awori, Kalonzo Musyoka, Joyce Saitoti, yours truly, and Simon Yachai. And we were talking and said the Uhuru Park is full from 6 o'clock. That was our crowd. It was not a crowd of NK, of Kibaki, Amalwa, and Charity. We were the ones who, because we had disagreed with Moi in Kanu, had called that crowd. And the country was very charged. And whoever we picked was going to become the president of Kenya. So he said, look, let us go today and tell the country who is our candidate. Nobody was willing. I said, let other people step down. I myself am announcing I'm stepping down. Who else is stepping down with me? Nobody. Nobody. They say that let's go today and say we have come together, and in 2 weeks' time we'll come back here to tell them who is the candidate. I knew that language. We had tried it in 92, it did not work. In 97, it did not work. So I said, no, we must say something. They refused. So we went to the to the park. And I looked at all of them. And in terms of experience and so on. So when we went there, there was a lot of talk. And at the tail end, because I was the master of ceremony, I had the last word. And when I stood up, then after talking, and then I asked Mzee Kibaki and Natosha, the whole crowd, the field just went wild. Yeah! And say, Kibaki Tosha. That's how it was. Moi said Raila amekwisha kisiasa. Hakuna Mjaluo anaweza kupiga kura Mkikuyu. Kwa sababu yale Wakikuyu walimfanyia baba yake Jaramogi na Tom Mboya. Okay. I went down and I invited influential people of the Luo to my home. And I told them that there has never been a war between Luos and Kikuyus. The differences between Jaramogi and Kenyatta were ideological. It was over the land, whether we should buy land or whether we should take land back without compensation. And that was the only difference. But Kibaki was Jaramogi's son. Jaramogi is the one who brought him from Makerere. How did Jaramogi get Kibaki? Jaramogi went to Uganda. His friend Milton Obote was campaigning. And he found when the Obote's party, UPC, had prepared a very nice manifesto. So he asked Obote, who drafted this manifesto for you people? Obote told him, there are some students in Makerere. Actually, their leader is a Kenyan. So Jaramogi said, I want to see him. So Obote brought Kibaki and said, this is the leader of the team that drafted our manifesto. So Jaramogi asked him to do the same thing for KANU. And he drafted the KANU manifesto of 1961. That is what, and then Jaramogi invited him to come to Kenya and become the executive officer of KANU. And they agreed, and that's how he resigned from Makerere and came and became the executive officer. Jaramogi bought his first car and paid his salary for 2 years. So when elections were held in 1961, KANU had won against KADU. KADU was a party which had been formed supposedly for the small parties. KANU won, got 21 seats against 11 of KADU. 11 of KADU. But KANU refused to form a government before Kenyatta was released. KADU agreed. That's how people like Abengo Kondo, Ngala, Muliro, Manyayo were in government before independence. At that time, most people don't know that. So when I went, I told the Luos that, look, Kibaki is Jaramogi's son. I convinced them. And they voted for Kibaki 98.5%. James Orengo was also a candidate. In his own home constituency, Ugenya, he got 4,000, Kibaki got 28,000. It tells you that this ethnicity is not skin deep. You can actually, and remember when Kibaki got an accident, we were together on a convoy from Kitui. We brought him to the hospital here. And people were so anxious and worried. I said, the captain is injured, but the march will continue. And I took charge. And I became the campaigner of the presidency all over the country. And we won. We saw Kibaki on a wheelchair at Uhuru Park. And from there, we decided to take him to Othaya. And we passed Githurai, a big crowd and cheering. We reached Juja, the same. We went to Thika. It was a very emotional moment when the Pikis crossed River Chania. We went to Kenol. We went to Muranga. We went to Sagana. We went to Kerugoya. We arrived in Karatina. Then we went to Mukureni. We arrived in Othaya. At Othaya, some people who are now trying to take advantage did not want me to speak. But the crowd said, no, Raila must speak. And they said, Raila ni Mtongoria Jamba, all over the place. So the country was very united, and say at that time of NAC, that was the most united time that Kenyans were most optimistic. How did you disagree with Kibaki? over, no, it's not over the issue of prime minister, which the people have been saying. It was over the constitution, because we had agreed that we would bring a new constitution. And we went to Bomas of Kenya. We spent months there, negotiating a new constitution. At the end, the stage worked out, led by the Vice President Mudi Awori and Kaitu Murungi. We insisted that the government was not a delegate. That is the only reason why we disagree with Kibaki. Because after that we had they blocked the commission from taking the draft to the parliament, manipulated it, brought it to Bunge, pushed it through, and then we went for a referendum. Oranges and bananas. The oranges won. The rest is history. Kibaki then dissolved parliament, and we were removed from government. And we went now into orange. And that is how we eventually ended up competing with Kibaki in the election of 2007. But it's not something personal. Because after the elections, you know what happened? We agreed to shake hands and form a grand coalition government. Joe has told you people. Okay? So how does that translate to Raila being an enemy of the mountain? I'm not an enemy of the mountain. Then we worked with Kibaki very well. Then you know what happened. And eventually 2013, you know, 2017, you know. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we have a country, and we must protect and defend and develop this country. And that's why in August I went to Nakuru and launched this new initiative, Azimio la Umoja, to bring Kenyans together. And I've been talking about the 4 U's: Utu, Umoja, Usawa, na Uzalishaji. That is what will help us to realize the Kenyan dream, as coined by our founding fathers. That Lord bless this land of ours, justice be our shield and defender, may we dwell in unity, peace and liberty, plenty be found within our borders. And in the Bible, a country where plenty is found is called the glory land, isn't it? It's called the glory land. And that's why I talk about the Kenyan dream. That's the Kenyan dream. And finally, I want to tell you, because some people are saying that they have the key to the mountain. And I've been telling them that no. Jaramogi first went to the mountain. And then Raila has been to the mountain several times. Raila does not need anybody to give him a key to go to the mountain. So I'm saying that last week, but I went to Nanyuki. Then I went to the mountain. And I went to the top of the mountain top, like Martin Luther King said. And I saw the glory land. And I was saying that I, and like Martin Luther King said, I and you people, we shall get the glory land together. Long live Kenya. God bless Kenya.